Hi guys, it's Kelly here, and this is my last card for the color throwdown. And I decided I wanted a one layer panel. Here I'm starting to work on the card before I realize that I haven't shown you the set. So we're going to be using Lawn Fawn's Our Friendship Grows, and I'm just a huge fan of this set for fall. I use it like a ton every single fall. So this week's colors are brown, orange, red, and green. So really can't get more fall colors than that. So I decided I'm going to do some flowers in some pots, and I was using that larger flower just to make sure that when I stamped my pot I had enough room for my tallest flower. So I have a bunch of masks here that I'm going to use so that way I can build them up behind each other. Just gonna lay those bad boys down and keep right on stamping. I mean, if you watch any of my videos, you know that I'm a huge fan of the one layer panel. I think it's fun to figure out how many tips and tricks and everything that you can use to make a one layer panel look like it's not a one layer panel. So here I'm done with my stamping. Just gonna remove all my masks, and I did end up drawing in my stems. There's stems included in the set, but I don't want to have to worry about making sure that they were perfect or masking them, so I just drew them with a pen because I was only doing straight lines. So now I'm going to start the Copic coloring, and a lot of it's time-lapsed just because I'm repeating myself several times. Here with the leaves, I'm going with my lightest color, and I'm completely covering it. And then from the center of the leaves and then underneath the flower and where the pot is, I'm adding shading because that flower would hang over its stem. And I just prefer to color my leaves when they're tiny like this, from the darkest shading to the inside. And, you know, there's no right or wrong way to do it. You could, you know, do it the other way so that the leaf didn't appear to be concave, but it appeared to be blooming out. I mean, there's, like I said, no rhyme or reason. It's just my preferred look. So I'm done coloring up all the leaves. And this color combination was really hard for me because I like bright colors. So having to incorporate all of these fall ones were just killing me. And I had a lot of images on this card. So I decided that I was going to go ahead and color the vase in the middle green. And like it was like a green glass vase. So I'm leaving a highlight on the very edges of my vase so that it appears to be see-through. And I'm not necessarily, you know, you've heard me say it before, I'm not a Copic expert, so I'm figuring it out right along with all you guys. And I don't know that I love the way that it came out, but I think it was a good learning experience, because I think if I would have stopped like here, it probably would have been okay. But adding in the light yellow, I don't know, maybe it doesn't make a difference. Maybe it's fine. Now that I'm looking at it again, maybe it's alright. So anyway, like I said, I was having a really hard time just figuring out what I wanted to do with these colors. So I've decided I wanted to go with a brighter orange for the center. I probably shouldn't have done this in hindsight because it felt like it was competing with the red of the flowers. But I just happen to like this color combination, and so I start with my lightest, work out to my darkest, and then in from my darkest back into my lightest. So basically with my Copic coloring, the two colors that you see the majority of are the mid-tones in between. So I'm just going to do the centers all exactly the same way, and then move on, you know, back to the pots. I decided I was going to do them just in neutrals because I didn't know what else to do with them. So neutrals are totally fair game in the color throwdown. So I went with warm grays for the one on the right, and then cool grays for the one on the left, so it would appear to be white. In hindsight, I kind of wish I would have done one of the flowers white and done the pot red, so that way it kind of broke up those flowers. But I didn't. This is what I did. This is what I did. So I'm just, you know, adding a little bit of shading to make that pot round. And here, since I want it to be white, I'm not going to add a ton of shading. I'm going to add my C1. I'm going to do that flicks of color, pushing it like a broom toward the center, leaving the center white. And underneath that lip, there would be a shadow. So add in a little bit of C3. And my C5 is only going to go on the outer edges, just underneath that lip. that's all the C5 I'm going to add because I want it to look white. Here, I didn't really know how I wanted to color my flowers, so I messed around with the first one, and I didn't leave that in because it was just like back and forth and making a mess. So what I ended up doing with the smaller ones is not adding shading to the outside edges. With this large one I did because the area would allow me to, and I wanted it to feel like it was more rounded. That's just my preferred look. And with flowers like this, where all the petals are on top of each other, you want to be careful with your bottom shading, like when you're shading closest to the center, because you don't want it to be one big solid line. So since the way that this stamp is drawn is that one petal is on top and one petal is below, when I get to my darker shading, the R29 and the R69, I'm trying to add shadows just to the center of the one that's on top, and then the one that's behind, I'm doing the side on the center. Just so that maybe it looks like it would be behind it. To me, by the time that this was all said and done, it just had a really hard time looking like it was layered. It was just so much red, like red flower on top of red flower on top of red flower. But you live and you learn, and then that's why, you know, it's good to do stuff like this. It's good to do color challenges, or any kind of challenge, really, because it pushes you outside what you would normally do, and then that's how you learn things. So just going back through, I laid down my lightest to darkest, and then I'm going to, you know, push a little further out past the first layer that I did and start filling in some of that white space. So, yeah, and this is my second to lightest color, and this is going to be the majority of what the petal is, and then I'll just fill in the highlights with the lightest color. The other thing I can tell you, like I said, you know, I felt like it was just red on top of red. I didn't show it, but I did go back and outline all of my images, and I used a little bit of a thicker line than I guess than they were drawn with, and it did help it stand out a little bit more one from another. So here I'm just erasing that line that I was drawing in the beginning, because I'm going to put in some ground or counter or whatever, so that these little guys don't just like they're floating in space. And I'm using a lot of brown colors because I knew it was going to be a lot of area to cover. So it's going to be darkest underneath where the flowers are, and then I just brought that down a little bit so it would be, it would fill the card more. And just working in layers, like I said, with a lot of browns. So here, this is my second to darkest color, and then the darkest color I'm just really going to do underneath the pots. And then I'm going to work in the reversed order and blend it back out. After it was all said and done, I didn't like how my lightest color blended into the white, so I ended up going back and adding another light color. I mean, everything's a work in progress, people. We just gotta keep working it, deciding what works, what doesn't. So I took E50 and I went back in to help, you know, just blend that out a little bit more, and I was a lot happier with the way that looked. And even to go further, at some point I go in with my the colorless blender and just kind of do that. And I wanted to add some dots or something underneath the flower pots. Couldn't even think of that word, elusive flower pots. But I was just having a hard time with my colorless blender, so I did it. It added a little bit of texture, wasn't as much contrast as I was looking for, and then I decided to go in and outline, add a little bit of a shadow. So I outlined the whole image with a W1 and then added a shadow with a W3. So this is a neat thing that you can do if you want a one layer card, but you don't want it to look like a one layer card. So I drew myself a guide, and then I'm using post-it notes to mask off the edge. And here I'm going to go with some distress ink. And if you lay down your colors, I'm starting with the brush corduroy and laying that down, and then I'm going to go in with the ground espresso on the edge that's closest to my hand, so the edge that's like right off the post-it note. And by doing that, you can create the look of that your stamped panel is popped up over like some brown paper. Now, when I went in with the ground espresso, it wasn't going on as dark as I wanted. It was just kind of making it all over dark. And I don't know if it was just because the post-it notes, I'm not sure what the issue was. So I just went back in and took a Copic that I felt matched fairly well, and pardon my head. And then I just used my ruler to draw a line. And then when you remove it, see, it appears like it is more than one layer just because you have that little bit on the side. I'm going to stamp my sentiment. It's from the same set. And I stamped it in, hello, the same one I always use, W+9 pure color black ink. And then I outlined it in white. This is like one of those things like you just get stuck in a rut and you keep doing the same thing over and over again. I really wish I hadn't done it here, but I did, and it is what it is. So then I added some clear sequins from Pretty Pink Posh, just to give it a little bit of sparkle, and that's pretty much the card. So big thank you to Color Throwdown for having me as a September guest designer, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.